Hello, Uglies. I'm here with some very exciting news about the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 666 US Tour. Pre-sale tickets are about to go on sale on Tuesday, March 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So if you're a fan of the show and you want first dibs on tickets, sign up now for the pre-sale at dragulalive.com.
Now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet Brothers, creatures of the night.
Welcome, dear listeners, to the Seance Parlor here at gloomy Boulet Manor on this chilly, haunted evening.
It really has been chilly, and I am not a fan.
Not a fan.
No, it's like more than chilly. It's just been cold.
Mm-hmm.
And we must sound so weak and pathetic because we live in Los Angeles and our cold is like 50. And we're like, oh my God.
You remember what the New York snow was like. So I can't believe that you think it's cold here.
I know, but I've been just totally acclimated. And I grew up in New England, so it was always like the worst every year.
Mm-hmm. 5 foot of snow every other day.
Yeah, but I've been spoiled and I love it.
Well, I love that we're doing a special listener questions episode.
Yes.
So for everybody that's been following along, we've been doing recaps of the Boulet Brothers Dragula previous seasons. We finished 2. We're about to go into 3, but we're taking a little 1-week break so that we can answer all your listener questions because there are a lot of them that are built up, and we're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. But not before we give you what you wanted and what you all asked for, which was a Yellow Jackets recap.
Yes. I love that the Uglies and the ghouls out there are holding us to our word that we were going to do Yellow Jackets recaps, and they want it.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 episodes to catch up on. We're talking about Yellow Jackets Season 3, episodes 4 and 5.
All right. So I'll tell you the quick synopsis, and then we can give our thoughts on
Okay.
it. Episode 4, the Yellow Jackets attempt to spin 100 suspicions into proof. Coach Scott has an existential meltdown and wonders if the universe really does hate him. Meanwhile, Jeff embarks on a crusade to make things right energetically. And we'll just do both episodes. So episode 5, the Yellow Jackets confront the reality of having to pull an old yeller. I'll explain what that means in a minute. Lottie mentors a new up-and-coming prophet. In the present, Misty investigates a suspicious death. So I'll talk about the storylines that stood out to me, and then you let me know what you think.
Okay, but let me throw this out there first before we get out of the gate. Remember when I said Season 1 of Yellow Jackets ruled? Season 2, a little bit of a flop. Season 3, I think we're back. I'm scared I was wrong.
Really?
That's the way I'm feeling right now, yeah.
You know, I'm wondering, it's mostly not the last episode, the episode before, right? Did you think 5 was a little wonky?
There was stuff that I liked in 5 specifically, but I did feel like the whole let's summon evil tie with lesbian sex so that she can shoot the coach easier was just crazy. I mean, this was like one of those things that I think is the downfall of season 3, at least it is right now, which is they try to normalize this really crazy, ridiculous stuff, and that might work for the girls who are running around the wilderness like Lady Lord of the Flies, but it doesn't work to the fans. Like, we want it to make sense.
It's giving WB.
What's that series
Right?
with like Jughead and the girls, Archie? Like, they made a Riverdale. Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, the Jughead comic from 1963.
Riverdale, darling, Riverdale.
Yes. I never watched it. Did you?
No, I didn't.
Well, it seemed interesting. But anyways, so, okay. As far as the things that stood out to me, the Shauna getting locked in the freezer thing and seeing Jackie, I liked, because I love that Jackie is back to torment Shauna.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here for that.
Yeah, and you know what? Shauna deserves it because she, in this season, has become hateable.
Really?
Just so easily disliked.
As in her younger self or the older self?
Mostly young Shauna, but
Right.
hi, it's the same person. So you
Right.
think like, okay, this is the same woman. I do love Melanie Linsky's older Shauna. I kind of like her, and I
Yeah.
like the tension that she has with Misty, my favorite character. Christina Ricci has older Misty, but I think Shauna has become just absolutely rotten to the core.
Yeah, young Shauna is unlikable, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, they take the coach and they put him on trial for what they're saying he attempted to burn down their cabin, which I don't think he did.
No.
And it's clear that he didn't do it. And Shauna is gunning to kill him and to say he's guilty, which they do vote that he's guilty.
Like in this weird forced 2/3 thing. I mean, I get it because there's some laws like that in our modern society, but it's usually like 2/3 for a conviction. And if you don't get the 2/3, then they're innocent. They're absolved.
Right.
Not that you need to get 2/3 one way or the other. So vote again, vote again, vote again. It just felt really forced.
It also feels odd because it's almost like, what's the point of killing him now? You know, like if he was trying to do something to them, he's had plenty of more opportunities since he realized that their cabin didn't burn down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read some reviews. I read some people's thoughts. I saw and, kind of got this notion that some people believe Shauna, in the fallout of having lost her baby, is kind of like almost like bitter for blood. Like she's just feeling dark and clouded and negative,
Don't
and that's
care.
why. Yeah, but and you know what? I don't care either.
We all got problems, Shauna.
Yeah.
We all got problems. Why are you special?
Yeah.
I would kill Shauna.
Yeah.
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 And then there wouldn't be a future story because I would have killed her in the past. And
Here's something that I came up with, though. I think that they have guilt. And the coach's presence kind of underlines that guilt because he said he did not partake in the cannibalism. And then that makes them feel guilty for the choices that they made for their own survival.
that is a great point. I hope that they explore that because if that's the case, that is a really interesting way to look at it. So we also have this development in the modern day with Shauna and Walter doing this detective stuff, trying to fill, oh yeah, by the way, everybody, Lottie got killed in modern times, obviously.
Yeah.
And Shauna and Walter are trying to be like citizen detectives or something and figure out who killed her. It's I do not like it.
Very odd couple, very forced, but they're also against Misty, who is also citizen detective.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be okay with them both at the same time working their way into Lottie's rich dad's penthouse, and he's just giving them the run of his
They're
whole
just
apartment.
walking around
It's
doing
crazy.
whatever they want.
We've lived in major cities our whole lives. That would never happen, no matter what.
Well, especially Misty, who her excuse was, oh, your daughter had a package of mine. Can I go in your house and look around? Someone would be like, I'll go see if I see it. And if I don't, yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was a little weird. I wasn't into it. What other memorable things happen in these episodes?
Well, I think Misty brings the girls together to talk about Lottie's death, which was shocking. Like, even if it was also a little bit unclimactic, I'm like, wow, that's not very remarkable for this major ass character to be offed.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at young Lottie. Like, young Lottie, season 1, she was scary.
Yeah.
Like when her meds started running out, like they really did it right in the first season of the show. And I think older Lottie, maybe there's a disconnect, and the cult that she ran almost felt kind of fun. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of different and weird, but she was still a major character and deserved a more glorious death than that.
Yeah. And who do you think killed her?
I don't know, but do you think that the person or the force, because I almost feel like it might not be a who, but it could be a what, that killed Lottie is also the one that tampered with Shauna's brakes and locked her in the freezer? Like there's stuff going on. So it's a
person.
Is there someone trying to hunt them down
of
for
course.
like what you? Okay, you say of course, but I think this show straddles reality and super. You do?
I think I know who it is.
Oh, you know from your own deduction.
Right,
I thought you read some blog or something. Okay.
I think the coach lives and it's him.
Really?
Yeah. And if that's the way they go, which it's fine if they do, I'd be a little disappointed that they didn't hint to him before in previous seasons, because it's too much of a jump. Like, he's a central character now in the past story. So now all of a sudden he starts killing them in the present at the same. I don't know. Like, I'm like, why wouldn't you have started doing that last season or the season before?
That's an interesting premise. This season is making me feel like something that you and I have talked about, because on some shows they'll have different writers on different episodes, and I feel like they have different writers on every episode and across all the seasons. Like, everybody here that's controlling the car doesn't know the final destination. Like, we're all over the road. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But there was something that happened in episode 5 that revolved around Coach Scott, and it was one of the reasons that I actually do love Yellow Jackets and what it can pull off. And this is Akela's dream sequence where it's primal, it's supernatural, it's ominous, symbolic, and she's walking across this giant body of the coach because he's the bridge. And then she wakes up and tells Lottie, who's like kind of like a psychopath anyway. She's like, yeah, go in there and get high again with this gas. She almost dies. So they run back, and Evil Ty has successfully been summoned, and she's about to blow Coach's head off. And this is what I'm saying. And then Lottie throws the gun up, and it's like, wait, no, the coach is the bridge. Now, what I thought, I loved the dream sequence, but what I thought was the coach's death would bring about their rescue. That's what I thought was happening. But then they were like, oh no, we have to save him. Okay.
Well, then Shauna, like the rotten person she is, goes and cuts his healer. I mean, what did she do there? Did she cut
she got the other girl to like slice his only Achilles tendon. Yeah. So he can't move.
Shauna needs to be dealt with. And I don't know how she came. This is the disconnect for me. The character she is in her youth compared to the character she is in her adult self, that there's not the same person to me. Like, something must happen.
I don't think we're going to get that clarity. I think we're just supposed to connect all these dots. Just like adult Shauna, season 1, the one where she killed that guy who she just suspected, is very different from seasons 2 and 3.
It is.
Yeah, and there's no explanation.
All right, everybody. We'll keep watching Yellow Jackets with us, and we will try to squeeze in some recaps as the season develops. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be reading all of your listener questions. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, my darlings. It's now time. We are taking a break from our recap so we can catch up on all of these listener questions. We know you're just dying for the answers, so let's jump in.
Aaron from Madison, Wisconsin. I need more Yellow Jackets reviews. Well, you just got to. I learned about the show through you all and love to hear your thoughts. Mary mentioned to the coach that the cabin was burning for weeks in episode 2, which might help explain how the girls and Travis stayed warm the rest of the winter. They also had supplies from the cabin they saved before it all burned down, which is much more than Jackie had. I know it's still not a satisfying answer, but it helps me at least.
I agree with Aaron from Madison.
Okay, so let's say there's a fire, right? You still can't keep dry. There's snow on you.
Listen, I don't think that we can apply our modern real world logic to supernatural wilderness magic that's happening in the woods with these girls.
You are trying to make Yellow Jackets supernatural with confirmation.
Oh my God.
There is no confirmation
so
that
clear.
That's the case. No, it is not.
Okay, well, we shall see.
What have you seen that's supernatural?
Give me a break. I mean, the show is riddled with supernatural vibes from the first season.
But
all
that's
of those,
it.
The symbols that are carved all over the woods and all over the cabin, and they allude to like, you know, who lived
Lottie
there before.
Did that.
She probably did. Crazy bitch. Well, I appreciate this perspective, and I kind of agree. And I've read that before too. That it's the cabin burning which got them to spring. Hannah writes, I was wondering how come you don't love season 3 as much as the others. As a viewer watching when the show came out, I loved the season, but hearing the divas talk about season 3 on Titans and hearing season 3 referenced in the podcast gives me the impression that production didn't like season 3 as much as I did. Am I off base?
The reason that you hear discussion about season 3 and the not most positive tone is not because we didn't like season 3 or because we didn't like the season 3 cast. What I will say, there was a few people that were cast that I don't think were a right fit for the show. I don't think they came to the show with the spirit that season 2 came to the show with. I felt like they came there to prove a point. They were there to sort of embrace at the time what was this social justice sort of energy, but
that was very prevalent.
But it
during
was
the filming
taken
of
to
3.
the absolute extreme. Like everything anybody did was offensive somehow or another, and it just made it impossible to film the show.
Yeah. And I want to say this too. We are one of the most liberal, diverse, like super cool sets, like with people across all spectrums repped on the show. Everybody has a great time filming Dragula. And it was easy for that kind of energy to spoil the whole thing. Like everybody started to feel sour because when you have that on set every day, it's infectious.
It was not all of them, but the problem was, I think the ones that weren't like that were afraid to speak up or challenge the other people. I'm like, you all love season 2 of Dragula. You're here on season 3. You know that this is not what the show is. And it was just, they wouldn't talk. They were afraid they were going to get canceled. They were afraid they were going to be misogynists or what. They just wouldn't do anything.
Yeah. And if you're a listener, you know we're on the cusp of going into season 3. We just took this break for listener questions between the seasons to sort of catch up and give us a breather. But season 3 is filled with amazing challenges and amazing drag. It is a good representation of what the show offers. Yeah. But it was the behind the scenes stuff that made it difficult from a production point of view that gives us that kind of weird vibe when we think about 3, because it wasn't there for 1 and 2, and it actually really hasn't been there since.
Shahad and Yosef from Kuwait ask, do you prefer a monster that is more polished or creative and crafty, and why?
I think we're going to have opposing views on this one. My answer is creative and crafty.
That's my answer too.
Really?
Yeah.
I know scoring with polish and grace is high up on your priority list, but creative and crafty is higher.
If I were hiring someone for a show, I would pick polished. More than likely. If I wanted them to show up on time, put on a good show, have their music, everything, you know. But as far as the competition, I think the crafty people are a little more fun.
Yeah. I love that squirrely creativity because you can apply it across the board and you know that they're going to grow. If you have that as part of your DNA, that creative energy can carry you through years of artistic expression. Ivy from Michigan writes, do you think the Yellow Jackets are unreliable narrators? I mean, the quick answer is definitely. Seeing how perfect the huts looked in the spring after a brutal winter with a burned down cabin, I wonder what is actually true. Additionally, do you think the show is supernatural or not?
See? Yeah. It's not just me.
Well, look, not everybody can see as clearly as I can.
Yeah, but you're seeing it through a creative person's eyes. You're sort of giving liberty to it, where at this point we just haven't been given that.
Well, I think we are listening to a story told by a multitude of unreliable narrators. I think this should be seen through the lens of trauma, survival, and being out there and alone, vulnerability.
So do you think that we're watching their recaps of what happened and maybe it's not exactly what happened?
Maybe it's colored.
Well, that would be weird because we're not clued into that at all.
We're not saying, yeah, I mean, maybe we will be one day, but I kind of believe that they don't have this whole story plotted out.
I think that's the truth,
which is
scary.
Yes, they struck gold with season 1 and they're like, shit, now we got to write the rest of them. No, I know they had a plan to do multiples, but I don't think they planned it out.
Brad from Boston asks, I recently started listening to Peaches Christ and Michael Varotti's podcast, Midnight Mass, and was introduced to Brian De Palma's 1974 rock musical, Phantom of the Paradise. It was a wild and fun ride that I have since shared with my chosen family of queerdos. I was particularly intrigued by the villain of the film, the music producer who exploited talented artists, hosted wild orgies, and made a Faustian deal for eternal youth. I couldn't help but wonder if this villain, who was named Swan, might have an inspiration for Swanthula's name.
Well, Brad from Boston, I think that's some really good deduction on your part. And also, kudos to you for having good taste because Phantom of the Paradise is very cool. And when I watched it, I definitely squealed with delight that the main villain was named Swan. But my name was chosen long before I saw Phantom of the Paradise because I came into that movie much later in my kind of journey watching stuff like that. So the answer is no. Swanthula was born before Swan came across my TV screen. Jake from Loveland, Colorado writes, my question is between Lady Drakmorda and Mother Swanthula. If someone approaches you two and says something that gets under your skin, between you two, who is the first to cut their throats?
I'm going to say it depends on who it is and what they say, because we get triggered in different ways. But I can promise you that both of us absolutely can go there.
Yeah. And it's not cute.
I always regret it, but at the time, I can't control it.
I love when you do it.
I'm
do.
Usually very reserved.
You are so always controlled. And I feel like you give so many passes. And then there's that point where it just crosses over and you roast them.
Yes. Because there's no reason to be unreasonable. And how do you know that this person's name was Jake and not Jack Hay? Do you think they just accidentally added an E onto their name?
I thought that was a typo and it was your fault.
My fault. I didn't write it.
Hey, you deliver this to me.
Oh, I'm going to murder this name. Giulia Bia from Italy. My question for you is
Wait, start from the beginning again.
Why? No. My question for you is this. Now I lost my place. Where is it? Oh, wait. Okay.
Julia Bia.
Hold on. My question for you is this. In the last episode, I died laughing, imagining a murderous Drac running around in heels and a chainsaw on the roof of a nightclub. So I wanted to ask, can you share 3 of the top craziest moments from your nightclub days?
That was an awesome night. I mean, running around the roof, Drac was not alone. There was a crew of us.
But I did it a lot.
You loved it. You really did.
Some of my craziest. I'd have to give that some thought. I can't just pull it out of thin air like that. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Is there one that sticks out to you?
I don't know if it's the craziest, but it does stick out. Like the stuff that used to happen at these clubs, you would never see today because there were no cell phones allowed. Like there were no cameras. Like people were getting away with like the wildest stuff in public, and it was amazing. But I do remember this one time we would have contests throughout the night and invite patrons to get up on stage. And we promoted alcohol. Like we were like, let's get drunk and have a great time. And I remember there were a couple of competitors on stage, like contestants for the contest. And the stage is like 4 feet off the ground and it's covered in a red curtain. And they were just drunk and drunker than we thought they were. And they leaned back, grabbed the curtain, pulled themselves, the curtain, and everyone off the stage onto the ground. And I was like, oh my, because then the audience could see.
It was not close to the ground.
No, it was scary. I thought someone was definitely hurt.
Yeah. I think that's why you had that dream about Dita, that horror dream you had. Because we used to book Dita at the club, and you had that dream about her getting wrapped up in the curtain and falling.
Yeah.
But that's why.
Definitely.
I think the 2 things that stick out to me are, God, there's so many. The time I lit myself on fire when I was trapped on the roof, that was cool because there was no one that could help me. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
And
a lot of the stuff that you see on Dragula was born from our ideas in the club. Like, for example, the wrestling and the mud wrestling. We've done so many mud wrestling and blood wrestling parties in a nightclub. That's wild stuff. Like, I don't think you can see that anywhere. And the mechanical bull. Like, we used to have the mechanical bull. So you got to picture people wasted and then like, Drac is the one controlling the
I'm going to tell this story because it's
oh my God.
This mechanical bull was no joke. This was like a very powerful, hardcore, real mechanical bull. We had like a kind of Wild West themed fetish party, and you ride the mechanical bull. So the guy I was like, I have to run it because me and these other people are kind of running the area. So I was like, well, tell me how to do it. So he's like, you need to keep this on like a 2 at the most because this thing is really hardcore, like for real rodeo people. I was like, okay. So there's 2 knobs. It was like It was like the one that slammed it forward and then the one that spun it in a circle.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, and remember how paranoid was because like someone's going to get hurt. So I was like, I studied it. I'm like, I'm ready to go.
She studied the 2 buttons.
So the first person gets on and I studied how to do it. This girl gets on it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn it on. So I turn it on. And what I thought is that I had turned both things to 0. But what I had actually done was turned both to 10. So as soon as I hit the button, the girl flies off behind the thing, underneath of it, and the thing starts smashing down into her like a pneumatic.
Yes, like a jackhammer.
Yeah, like a jackhammer, just smashing her into the ground. And I lost it. I was like, this person is dead.
I was like, holy shit, Drac killed somebody.
I killed the first person. So, long story short, they pull her out from under it. And I think it's something because it was on top of like a blow up kind of, I don't know what you call those things, like a safety thing. Yeah. So it was smashing her, but she was just getting smashed into the balloon thing, like a bouncy house or something. And she was pretty buzzed. Yes. So she was like, that was fun. I don't care. I'll do it again. I was like, but for a minute, my life definitely flashed before my eyes.
Absolutely. Alana writes, I've been loving the Yellow Jackets discussion on the pod, and I was wondering if there could be a possibility of a Yellow Jackets related challenge, or maybe like a snacky inspired fright feat or something like that on the show.
So we did have a Yellow Jackets themed episode plan, which was season 5, episode 1, Terror in the Woods. Mm-hmm. And we had an actress from the show booked to be a guest judge on that episode. And the day that she was supposed to fly and come to set and do it, she canceled. Mm-hmm. So there was no real reference to Yellow Jackets, even though if you really look at it, you would see it. But I do think we might do something like that in the future. Jake from Cardiff, this is Jake, not Jackie. I'm seeing someone new who has a love of goth culture but has never seen Dragula before. But when I showed him the remastered first episode on Shudder, he was interested in seeing more. Therefore, I ask, do you have a viewing of episodes like fans of Star Wars, or do you prefer chronological viewing order for folks who are new to watching yours and your monster's work? I would say it's our work, first of all. Thank you.
Let him know, Drac.
And I would say I would start with the most recent season. I would start with 6 because I think 6 is just chef's kiss. Like, I love 6. I feel like it's just a full circle, and I feel like we were able to make it the closest thing to what we want the show to be. So I would start with 6 and go backwards, because I'm afraid if some people started with season 1, that would be it.
There is something magical about people starting from 1, though, and if they stick with it, they're always gagged at the transformation of the show, because especially those first couple of seasons, year after year, is like, wow, we were really just kind of flexing and showing people what we would like to be creating.
We're going to take another break, and we will be back to continue answering your listener questions. Bryn Murphy asks, a few weeks back, a listener called in and asked how you liked your Joker to be portrayed, and it got me thinking. How do you two like your vampires portrayed? On a scale of Count Orlok to the vampire Lestat to True Blood, do you like them more monstrous and creaturey, or more romantic, tragic, and mysterious?
It's hard for me to answer like a favorite with vampires specifically, because I love them all. Probably one of my favorite vampire depictions are the vampires from 30 Days of Night. They're brutal and alien and very powerful and just gnarly, really fun. But I also love the entire Anne Rice series. I love beautiful and mysterious and gorgeous and perfect. So it's kind of like all of it.
For me, I do not like the romantic stuff. I think if I was in the vampire Lestat world, I would have an army of hardcore vampires and we would hunt those people down and wipe them off the face of the earth. I like monstrous. Vampires are evil. You're supposed to be scared of them. So I like them to be dead, corpses, scary.
Ugly.
Yeah. And even, there's so many different myths about vampires. Sometimes they'll be like your relatives that come back, which is so terrifying if you think about it. So I definitely prefer monstrous. And I don't think I've seen any on screen to me that have done it. I think the book Necroscope really nailed it, but that's in literature. So I haven't seen it on screen though.
Nathan from Ontario writes, my question is, in season 2, Disasterina is my favorite of the season. Is her accent fully put on with the character, or does she have an accent not in the US out of drag?
The answer is that is only for her drag character. Mm-hmm. He does not have that accent when he's out of drag. I wish people could have seen more of that in season 2.
Yeah, me too.
Every question I get is long. You get the short ones and I have to read these paragraphs. All right, here's what's up next. Trent Seeley asks, one of the unexpected joys of the Creatures of the Night podcast is hearing you discuss the Real Housewives franchise. It's clear that you both have a deep knowledge of the ladies and storylines of the various Bravo series, and I'm wondering if you've considered integrating your passion for housewives into a Dragula challenge.
The answer is absolutely yes. We've talked about it before. Many times it has made our kind of war board and planning for the season. It hasn't made it onto a season yet, but I'm not saying it never will.
I sort of feel like the problem with it is the look, because the fans are very into the visuals of the challenges. You can make it an acting challenge, a singing challenge, or whatever, but if someone looks super cool, even if they're not on the theme, the fans love them no matter what. So it's like we try to say that thing where it's like we want to elevate the performers over necessarily look queens, but the audience does not do that.
Yeah, we need to throw a serious curveball at it, like the Real Housewives of Mars or something like that, where it really amps up the visual possibility.
I also can't think of a good housewife. Like, I love all the housewives. I know all of them.
We'll be watching them tonight.
Yeah, but I can't think of one that's appropriate. I mean, Kyle Richards I would love to have, but I kind of feel like she'd be scared of us. Don't you? Like, I feel like she'd come to set and
she's
get scared.
She's kind of scared of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I love her. I'm like, oh my God, you'll have so much fun here. But I feel like she'd be terrified of all of it.
Agreed.
Maybe Dorinda.
Oh, my girl.
Phaedra's gothic too.
Yeah, she really is. She's a freak.
Anyways.
In a good way. Jason Smith asks, what do you think the future of Dragula will look like? How long can and do you all want to keep making this amazing show?
I've asked myself that recently, like in the future, and I guess the answer is it's twofold. On one hand, I am still excited about the show. I like when we do, when we're working on seasons, wink, wink, I fall in love with the show and what we can do and the crew and even the cast and everybody. And I love it. So I think if I ever started to not love it, I would stop. And the only thing that gets in the way is it takes up so much of our time. And there's so many scripted opportunities for us that we don't have time to dig into. And so in that sense, I would want to take a break for like 2 years or something.
I could see that. My life has taught me don't think too much about the future. And if you know that you're inspired and excited about this project now and you want to keep doing it, then just do that and be happy with it and roll with that juju because it will carry you to success. If you're unhappy and you have to work a job that you don't like or you're on something you're uninspired by, that will also lead you to failure.
On that note, I know everybody needs money, so obviously keep yourself employed, but don't work at a job that you hate. Just don't do it unless it's the only job in your town. And even still, hitchhike, go somewhere else.
Oh, I love that you get this last name too.
Oh, Louise Me Monster, or is it Louis Me Monster?
I don't know.
Maybe it's Louis Me Monster because I think they're a drag artist. Anyways, I'm curious, how do you feel about fans dressing up for the live shows? I think it's great. It feels like, they're our fellow Transylvanians and your family's coming to town and you're going to have a big family reunion. So I'm like, go all out, have fun. Just make sure you're comfortable because sometimes it's standing and not seated. And you don't want to be standing there in high heels for that long on a concrete floor.
But a Dragula show really is like a gathering of the Transylvanians. And we say Transylvanian, we mean it in the sense of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Right.
Like we're the aliens, we're the others, we're the freaks. And, we wear that like as a badge of honor. So when you come to a Dragula show, it's just filled with Transylvanians. And it's like having Halloween in June or whenever the tour is. And it's fun. And I definitely support it.
All right, everybody, that's all the time we have for this episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. Make sure you join us back here next week for the recap of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 3, Episode 1. Also, do not forget to rate, subscribe, and review the podcast wherever you listen to it.